Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm interviewing Laura Roeder, and Laura is the founder and the creator of Paperbell. And you may know her a little bit from her other entrepreneurial ventures. And for me personally, she has been one of those people, especially when I was first starting out, who really showed me what was possible. This was 10 years ago when self-development, mental health was not really spoken about that much. And yet somebody like Laura was over in the States, being able to access me and share what it is that she does with me in London. And I know that sounds so obvious and simplistic now, but truly, I believe that many of us, we need these people who are leading the way. And that's how I see Laura. I think she's a true leader, highly inspirational and lovely, and has so many great things that she shares on this podcast. So I hope you enjoy. Let us know what you think. You can access Paperbell. I'll leave all the details down below, and I'll see you on the other side. Laura, welcome to the podcast. I'm so delighted that you're here. Would you mind just starting with an introduction, who you are, what you do, etc.?
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Paperbell, and Paperbell is a tool for coaches, like life and business coaches, basically a kind of back office tool to run your business. So we handle scheduling, client communications, contract signing, payment, that kind of stuff, basically just so coaches can focus on coaching and not all the, pile of paperwork and admin that it takes to run a coaching or consulting business. And I've been running businesses for almost 20 years now, full time. I got started when I was pretty young working for myself, and I moved from being a freelancer to doing online courses to doing software. And I'm now on my second software company.
Incredible. And when I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about, I guess, my own journey of sort of how this entrepreneurial scenario started. And you were one of the first people sort of 10 years ago when I launched my coaching practice, who really taught me, even though we'd never met in that moment, to really think globally, because certainly in the UK at that time, I mean, coaching was sort of seen as a bit of a cult, like, what's she trying to do to me? Can she see inside my brain? And the answer is yes, I can. No. But when we started, certainly in the UK, beginning to see what was happening in America, because life coaching and creating your own version of life and business was very much in, people doing digital products. It was just blowing our minds. And you were definitely in that way for me of, oh my goodness, you could have an international audience. And like, we didn't know about those things apart from pop stars or music industry people, and so that was really a turning point in terms of thinking bigger. Take me back to when you were at school. How how were you in that classroom environment? Were you always like, were there things cooking? Were you looking at the systems in the school go, do you know what, I could do this better, like let's see if we can have a meeting? Because I do think the entrepreneurial mindset is quite different, but yet when we're young and we're in a school system where we should be listening to the sensible adults, we might be shut down, we might be holding back what we should be saying.
Yeah, it's interesting because now I have an 8-year-old son, and he is very similar to me personality-wise. And I think the way he is in school is very similar to how I was as well. So I did great in school. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle with, you know, the structure and the sitting and the stuff. I didn't, you know, I was kind of lucky to not have problems with stuff, and I did well, but I also wasn't I was interested in what I was interested in. So even though I am kind of a high achieving type of person, you know, I wasn't obsessed with, you know, in America, we have valedictorian, right? Like I wasn't obsessed with necessarily getting those kind of like school achievements and high marks. And I really see it in my son the same way. So my son loves to read. You know, I was always, and still am, a big reader as well. And my husband was saying the other day, like, you know, talking about my son, like he reads all day, like he doesn't do anything else, like he's not interested in other things. I'm like, no, he'll get really focused when he is interested in something. And then when we were traveling, he decided that he wanted to learn how to dive into the swimming pool. He'd gotten, you know, better at swimming, but he wanted to learn how to dive. And it was just amazing seeing him for hours just diving over and over and over and over again. And I was like, see, like he's decided that he's interested in diving. There's a lot of things that we can't get him to do that he doesn't care about, but you know, when he does, all we have to do
as parents is to go, what is that thing? Okay, let's support it. I've been doing something similar with my 8-year-old, well, he's about to be 8, on Duolingo, and suddenly learning Spanish, they've introduced a league system, and because he's a huge football fan, he's just like, I'm at the top of the league, and I know this is, but only for 2 seconds until somebody else plays the game. But you're right, it's about connecting with what really makes you tick and how you can get the best results. So when you begun forging your own path, how did that look like? How did you, and I don't want to say the confidence, because sometimes it feels like the confidence is coming in now, you know, it really is a muscle that you grow. But what did you have in place to really support you and sort of say, do you know what, I can do this and it's going to be all right, and I know how to take the next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge advantage that I started with is that my parents did run a kind of small family business. So my dad is an architect designing people's houses, and my mom would kind of help with the office and the bookkeeping and stuff. Very similar to the businesses of a lot of people that we serve now, a lot of the coaches that we serve now, and that it was, you know, a one-on-one service business. You know, he wasn't trying to create some huge architectural firm. Actually, he had employees at one point, and then they, you know, there was a huge housing recession and he had to let them all go. And then he was like, oh, this is great. Actually, I'm never gonna have an employee again. And I think about him a lot as I'm doing what I'm doing now and working with coaches, because this is a total tangent from what you just asked me. But I think in the coaching industry now, I see so much emphasis on, you know, scaling your business, a 7-figure business, you know, oh, don't, you know, one-on-one isn't scalable. Oh, don't sell hours for dollars. You know, that's a waste of your time. And I'm like, but hours for, like, aren't we all here to coach people? Wasn't that kind of the initial, you know, the initial idea?
Taking yourself out of the business. And it's that moment where it's like, but your face and your name is there. So where you have to be in there somewhere. And I've had a lot of conversations recently, certainly in terms of clients and stuff that I've been chatting about, because there has to be, people are still buying in this time, but I think there is a bit more of an element of safety. Like people know the sales techniques now. People know, oh, those 5 hacks, they said that it worked for them overnight, but it might not work for me. And I've been talking a lot about clients of how can people feel safe in their purchase. And one of the ways you can do that is if they see you, if they see a real life human being, they see there is a a sense that they can reach out to somebody in customer services, that it's not just going to be little alien person, you know, popping up. God, I'm showing my age here, but yeah, it's
yeah, and it's amazing to, you know, quote unquote, just be a coach, and that's your whole business. You know, it's great if you want to do courses or group programs or whatever, but we still, you know, really need a lot of just coaches helping us one-on-one, you know. And so to circle back to what I was saying, you know, I grew up seeing that my family did make money that way. And so I just think it was a huge advantage, where I know so many people grew up just like never knowing anyone who ran a business. It was this mythical, you know, figure that they had never actually met. So even though it wasn't a huge business, it was enough to support our family. And I do think when I started, so I graduated university a bit early, and then I worked for about a year at an agency job. And then I quit to be a freelance web designer. And I think it did allow me to be a little less terrified to be, you know, a freelance designer, because that wasn't so different than the structures I had seen of how people earn their money. And basically the way I took that leap was like, okay, well, I don't like my job. You know, I'd saved up, I don't know, a few months of living expenses. And, you know, I was like 20 years old, so my living expenses weren't very high. And I just figured, well, if I fail at this, I'll just get another job, which is just, that's not worse than where I am, you know?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, you know, now sort of fast forward to having children and things like that, like my risk sort of level is slightly different, but equally, you do get that moment of trust in yourself that you will figure it out, and you will have a go, and you can send an email, and you can have those, and they always come at 4:20 for me in the morning, like, oh, and here's the light bulb, this is exactly what I need to do. And by about 7, I'm like, oh, I'm really tired now because I've been up so early. But you know, those ideas, we are always curious and looking for things, and can find a way. So you have done lots of things over this time. How have you grown so much and really taken these ideas and really made a impression in the marketplace? Because so many people know about your companies and what you do, and how have you been able to stand out from the crowd, essentially?
Oh, I'm trying to think of, you know, it's a really big question and a really important question for anyone who's trying to sell something on the internet. And I think there's so many different parts to it. So I definitely am always thinking about, one, making the business systematized, and two, people just needing to know that we exist. And I think this is kind of the bottom line of any business that gets really overcomplicated and really overlooked. No one can buy your thing if they don't know that you exist. And I would say for, you know, most small businesses, what you really need to focus on more than anything is just the, like, do the people know? Did you remind them 10 times? Are you in all the places? And businesses just tend to overlook just kind of the most basic little things. You know, right now I'm sitting here recording in a co-working space, right? So that could be, if you're a coach or consultant, you know, maybe there's clients for you in something like a co-working space that you've joined. Have you, like, one, do you have a little profile on your, you know, co-working directory that tells people what you do? Like, have you talked to the organizers about what events they do and how you can help? Like, do you, you know, we have a little Slack channel, like, are you posting in there regularly, kind of letting people know what's going on? Like, none of this is so complicated. And you know, you probably will need to do more than that. I mean, maybe you'll fill up your whole business from your co-working space. Yeah, that would be great. But I just think sometimes we get so overwhelmed, or like make things so complicated. It's like, okay, are you just kind of doing the kind of basic things in front of you first, of letting people know that you exist and what you offer?
Yeah, totally. Some of the things that I've been doing in my own coaching business is this element of like pressing play. So I trained as an actor many years ago, and I was saying to a client yesterday, I've played murderers and alcoholics and wenches and all sorts of things, like quite far away from me. But you have to find that truth as an actor when you're having this conversation. And you also have to find the truth of what it is that you're selling and being able to say it in the way that you're saying it. And I saw one of your other interviews where you were saying the importance of being able to read your website aloud and like make it so it feels embodied in you, and it's not some Laura trained at whatever here's paragraphs. And I don't think now it's necessarily a box ticking exercise to meet the trends. You have to meet your own. Can I actually sell this? Does this sound all right? Or I've never really liked that thing that copywriter wrote for me. I'm just going to take it out. I'm just going to leave that. And also that sense that, as you say, you might meet clients in all kinds of different ways, and your friends, your family, your colleagues will be recommending you. And I was saying to a client, you never want to be the Chandler Bing of business. Like, what does she do again? Who is she? Something in helping people? I don't know. I even heard my partner when I first training, like he would, say, oh, this is Nick and she does this. And I just thought, we've got to work on this elevator pitch, because he's promoting my business, but he doesn't really know what he's promoting, which is fine. So we regrouped and we figured that out. And
and actually, if I could throw in a little advice about that, I think a way that I see that sometimes people have been misled is they try to come up with something really unique for describing what they do, again because they're trying to stand out in some way on the internet. But I find that sometimes people make it so unique that everyone's like, but what do you, and also people people they want to be like, oh no, I'm not a career coach because, what I do is so beyond what your like normal career. But I'm like, but people can maybe sort of wrap their heads around what a career coach is. So like start there, so like, if you're meeting someone, be like, I'm a career coach. And then maybe they can be like, oh, what sort of, stuff you do with your clients. Right. And then you can kind of go on, but it's okay. And I think, in fact, you should sort of simplify what you do to like, I'm a business coach, career coach, bookkeeper, whatever. Don't like get so fancy and complicated and unique.
You're like, am I going
to figure out what you do?
It's like with copy of websites when, we're going to find your most empowered version. I'm like, I don't really know what that means. And especially when my kids were tiny, I was like, I'm in a red dressing gown. I'm so overwhelmed and tired. Like, I just need to know how I'm going to figure out the next stage. I don't actually need to be my most empowered version. I just need to I need a structure so I can put on a bra and like, I don't have to worry about the mortgage payments, and like, that will be fine. So yes. So you have created lots of technology platforms. And I remember the whole launch when, with Meet Edgar, and how I was just like, what? This is an incredible a library of socials that does it by itself. And I was a customer as well. How did you move into we're going to build something? So taking your model from just being you essentially into a product.
So Meet Edgar, as you kind of referenced, but for anyone who hasn't heard of it, is a social media scheduling tool that, when we launched it, had quite a unique advantage. And actually, I still, spoiler alert, I have exited the company now, but I do still use it for all our Paperbell stuff, because I'm like, it just sends out your updates on autopilot. Like, it's great.
Yes.
Why do people do it a different way? Yeah, exactly. So before I launched Meet Edgar, I was doing online course. My business was online courses about social media marketing, teaching people how to do social media marketing. And basically, I had this whole manual system that I was teaching people to do of creating a library of your content and then sending it out more than once, which I just have to mention still absolutely applies. The fact that people still do this, I'm like, when? Come on, people. Because just to say the very short version, your reach is tiny on social media, tinier all the time. Look at your own stats. That reel that you spent 4 hours recording, 1% of the people who follow you,
but nobody else.
Right.
So
right. Yeah. So to publish it only once when you spent so much time on it is like kind of bananas. So anyway, that's kind of what I was teaching people to do manually. And it was quite difficult because you had to have a spreadsheet of everything, but then it's like, how do you keep images in a spreadsheet and keep track of it all? And the way that I got into doing software is meeting my husband, Chris. So we work together on the companies we've created, and he is a software developer. And I think it's a great story of just like that we all have such strong boxes and limitations, and there's so much more that we just don't know is out there that we can explore and discover at any time. And so I had this whole system created, and there were social media scheduling tools at the time. Hootsuite existed, Buffer existed, and I just literally assumed that it was not possible to do things with a tool because I didn't know how software worked. I mean, I
and you only
knew how
know
to
what
build
you know,
websites. Right. It's not like I was like someone who wasn't techie at all. I knew how to build websites and do a lot of tech, but I didn't know how to write code, still don't. So I just thought, okay, well, the way I'm doing it, surely if the software could do it, they would. It must be impossible or something. And so Chris saw what I was teaching with my courses, and he's like, you could just build software instead of having all this complicated spreadsheet you're copying and pasting. Like, you just build software that does that. So I'm like, okay, great, build it.
And I love it when you see somebody's skill set that is either completely different or slightly different to you, and you're like, could this happen?
Yeah.
So you still now work together with Paperbell, and how did that transition happen in terms of building something else?
Yeah, so we had been working on Edgar and got it to quite a large business with a larger team, and basically got it to a point where the team was really running it. And actually, Chris had left the business quite a few years before. He kind of built the initial product, hired a development team to take it over without him. So he wasn't in the day-to-day like I was, but I was still running the business for a long time. But then basically we got a leadership team to run it. So at that point, basically we were just kind of, bored entrepreneurs is the only no good reason.
Problems to solve. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so we were able to have time to do something else. And yeah, basically we ended up kind of taking ourselves out of the business and selling the business. And during that time, we were experimenting with other ideas. And I had the idea for Paperbell because once I had taken myself out of Edgar, I did some business coaching, just kind of, for something to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up my business coaching. So I need some kind of link where people like buy 3 sessions and then they pay for it. And then I was like, what, I thought there was, I thought there was going to be like a million tools that do this. And, you could do obviously like there were Calendly and there was like PayPal, but I'm like, no, they need to be together in the same thing.
And even now, and like that sense of training, because also with coaching, it's like people will DM you and then they might WhatsApp you or I'll just say, oh my goodness, this happened, or they like your story and you're like, whoa, this feels all the way over the top. And your system is so streamlined, it's so slick. They know where they're at, you know where you're at. It's great.
Yeah. And just little things like coaches, most coaches do sell multi-session packages. And even now, if you're on like Calendly or Acuity, you can attach a payment link, but it's still just for one. It's like, I can buy 1 hour from you and pay you £100, but I can't buy like 3 sessions for you, or I can't do an, monthly subscription. I can't do a payment plan. These are all the things that we can do in Paperbell. So it was, another one where I was just like, how does this what coaches doing? Oh, things are so hard for them. yeah. I was just like, come on.
Yes.
So that's how it started.
And when you begun that process, was it very different to how you'd worked together on projects before? Like, do you now have a sense of we're not doing that, or have you learned that sort of shorthand with each other?
Yeah, I mean, so the way that Chris and I work together is like maybe a little unusual in the sense that we don't really run the business together because he likes to code. Yes. So, which works really well for us. We've really found how to work really well together because I kind of run the whole business and he is in charge of actually making the product. And that's how things were in Edgar as well. So it just makes it a lot easier because we're not constantly talking and compromising about what's our budget going to be for marketing and how's the team
Mm.
going to work, and what's the positioning of this and what audience are we going after. I do all that stuff and I love all that stuff. I mean, Chris like does not listen to business podcasts. He does not go to business conferences. Like it's not his thing, So we found a way to work together, and this is something that we kind of refined over Edgar and are doing now with Paperbell. We talk about product decisions, although even that is often, we get all our product. It's very easy because we literally just do what our customers tell us to do.
That's so good. I did some beta testing recently on like some new offerings that I wanted to have, and it's so much easier when you've got real life people who would go,
yeah,
it's not that, or that sentence you wrote, it didn't make sense to me. Oh great, well tell me more about it. Okay, oh yes, lovely. And you've just got to have that dialogue with real life people, especially in technology as well. So I guess you've just come back from 6 months away, you've got 2 small children. What does your week look and feel like right now, and how do you run that?
So I've actually always worked part-time since I had kids. So that's, again, my son will turn 9 in January. So ever since I was pregnant with him, I've just decided to work part-time, and Chris has as well. And I'm such a big believer that we have like maybe 3 or 4 hours in us of like focused work a day, and everything else is kind of faff anyway. So it's like, let's just cut it down. If we can really only do 3 hours, let's just do the 3 hours instead of 3 hours and then 5 more hours of messing about in the afternoon. So I've always found that you can really get a lot done. And I've always had teams around me as well. So I'm certainly not doing all the things for all the businesses myself. But so, I've always gotten in this rhythm of working part-time, and the way that my schedule looks now. So we were mostly off work for 6 months while we were traveling. Because the thing is about a software business, and this is why I love software, like what people are paying for is the software. So it truly does not take a human to deliver the value, and it's a lower cost software. We're not having sales calls with people. We're not having, what you're buying is the software, and people, again, aren't buying it with some sort of sales process. They just go to the website and they buy it. So all those things, the buying and the delivering and the ongoing using, really do happen without us. We have a customer service team that was, of course, still totally up and running and on top of everything.
We're not available for 6 months. That's it.
See ya. Right. Just ghost everybody. But we have a great team for that in place. So the way that I work now is like very flexible. We don't have meetings. I don't like to have a lot of stuff on my calendar. So we don't have any internal team meetings. We do it all just asynchronously on Slack when we need to talk about something. And our team is distributed in lots of different time zones. Like most of our customers are in the US. So our customer service team works US hours.
Right.
In the UK, as you know, if you're doing kind of school hours, you're kind of done before the West Coast starts, for most of America starts. So I'm doing my day UK time, customer services in US time. Our kind of marketing coordinators in the Philippines, she and I have a little overlap, like in my morning, her afternoon. So, everybody works, everybody gets their stuff done. We're not doing live meetings. And so I work kind of like 10 to 3-ish a lot, maybe like 4 days a week. And I find that's plenty of time if I'm focused with my work, to get it done.
Yeah. And how do you work? How do you, I guess, straddle that thing of what needs to be done on the day-to-day, but also creating tasks, creating moves that really will give you that scale and that long-term vision? How do you distribute your time and your energy within that?
So I find that I really focus my time on the deciding what's going to be done instead of the doing is kind of my normal strategy. Or sometimes I will kind of do the initial doing and then make it into a system to hand off. So for Paperbell, we do a lot of content marketing, a lot of blog posts, and those are SEO optimized, and we do all the things with the blog post. So I initially was coordinating all that, but I was not the one writing the blog posts. And so now I'm not writing the blog post and I'm not coordinating, but we publish, high quality articles on our blog 3 times a week, every week, because we have a whole system that makes that happen. So when I'm looking at my own time, and that's why also the deciding things is not super time consuming. I'm also doing things like, looking at our stats and budgeting. I'm doing things. I'm not just thinking, but writing 10 articles for the blog takes a lot of time.
Yes.
A human needs to put a lot of hours into doing that. So things that take a lot of hours like that are not me. I'm like telling everybody what to do with my little pointing finger.
Yeah, that's a really good thing, and I think there is such a pressure to be the person who can do all of the things. But I look back to my own schooling, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have computers, we didn't do any of that. And I think switching in terms of how you can use your energy and how you can make really great bold moves, but not feel like you have to slide down a radiator at the end of the day because you're so exhausted. So and so I guess, what do the next few years look like? Where do you want to go? What is this next phase of your life looking and feeling like?
Yeah, I mean, I just switched into big kid land, which is, I've been like messaging all my friends like, oh my God, big kid land, are you guys here? Isn't it amazing? Because, once my youngest turned 4, and especially once she turned 5, I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to look at her all the time. When they're 2, you have to be like, where are they climbing? What are they eating? Like, what are they putting on?
No. Yeah, you feel like you're in a constant state of yes, and they're not on you the whole time. I think that's a real difference. You just feel like, I think I just had a wonky shoulder for about 5 years because I always had a child there.
Yeah, and it does feel like a new phase of life now that the kids are, entertaining themselves a lot more, can be a lot more independent. And actually, my partner and I now have decided that, okay, when the kids were little, we would sometimes go away for things, but it was hard on the one who was home alone for the week with the kids, So we would definitely very, very much limit how much that happened. I mean, neither one of us, we like to travel as a family, but neither one of us traveled like on our own very much at all. But now that we're at big kid land, we're like, okay, this is a new era. If we want to do stuff, we're going to do it. And I just kind of haven't been looking at the cool Pilates retreats and the cool creative retreats. And I'm like, I can do that stuff now. So it's like, it does feel like a very exciting kind of new phase of my life.
Yeah. And you get all of that creativity as well. That also feeds into your business. And I think there's not much of a conversation about filling up your own cup, especially in the masculine sort of areas. It's about doing more hours and sitting at your desk for longer. And actually, if I'm sitting at my desk for too long, it doesn't do anything for me. But when we went on holiday, we went to the South Coast, and I was in the sea at 6:30 and just being like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've got all these ideas. And that's how I fill my own cup up. So well, if people want to come and find you and find out more about Paperbell, what's the best way in, and how can they get to know what you do?
Yeah, so just Google Paperbell or paperbell.com, and we have free accounts with no credit card required, just to make it super easy, no barriers to just get into the tool and have a poke around. You can set everything up, and the way we do it is your first client's free, and then you'll need to choose a paid plan after you add in your first client. But so that lets you kind of play around with our packages and our scheduling system and see how everything looks. So if you're thinking like, I talked to a coach yesterday who's like, yeah, all my invoices have been going to spam. I'm like, okay, you need to fix that. You need a new system for people to pay you. Kind of a problem.
Yes.
So
spam is like, come on, I've got all the invoices.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you are listening and you're like, there are some things I could, do better in my coaching business with the invoicing, scheduling, and contracts, blah, blah, blah. I would very much encourage you to check out Paperbell. I think it'll save you a lot of time.
Absolutely. Well, I will leave all the links down below. And I also love, from a customer point of view, that you offer that sort of free poke around, as you technically said. But because I think sometimes when people are looking at changing over software or doing things, they go, well, I don't know if I'm ready to give $97 a month or whatever the price is, because it takes quite a lot of time to get your head around things and work it out and stuff like that. Well, but I love chatting today. Thank you so much. And as I said, you've been in my mind's eye of like what is possible, and I think we need that. And the fact you're a mum as well, and you're doing amazing, brilliant things in the world. And if you're ever up in London, let's have a Pilates moment where we're just around big kid land. Like, we have no responsibility. Well, we do, but for this 3 hours we have no responsibility.
Right. Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.